And they also say you don't want to say no to AA. Eldon, it's great to see you. It's great to see everyone here. Welcome to all the day counters. I hope everyone and everyone else. I hope everyone's staying safe and doing well and staying sober with all that's going on. I remember early on in this pandemic, I phoned up a old timer friend of mine, and he said, "Remember, even with this pandemic going on, your real conflict is within." And I really, I feel like that's been the case for me. And it even talks about in our step book about when World War II broke out. That was our first test of faith, our society's first test of faith. Would the AA service members scattered all over the earth be able to withstand the monotony and withstand the war? And they did. They had fewer alcoholic lapses than their friends safe at home did, and the faith was their chief source of strength. And I think about that. Anyway, my sober date is July 8th of 2012. I'm not an expert on AA at all. I'm just another drunk. I'm just another garden variety alcoholic. I don't do this program perfectly, and my home group is the Glenridge group in Queens. We meet online. We'd love to see you all there. I could share the information. Anyway, I have a sponsor. I don't know how well I'm doing this program, but I have a sponsor. I unofficially, I think, have some sponsees. Anyway, so my sober day is July 8th of 2012. I know that AA is a blueprint for living, and sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. And they also told me a big thing that I like a lot is they told me if it isn't practical, then it probably isn't spiritual. I like that one a lot. I do pray, I do meditate. And I do make a good amount of meetings. Anyway, I started drinking, I think around 14. I think I had the isms early on. One thing they say with isms is I, self, me. I sabotage myself, incredibly short memory. Anyway, I love the acronyms. But anyway, I think I had the isms from an early age, and started out, I think, drinking on the weekends. But even though I was very small, I had a pituitary disorder growing up. I was very small, but I could drink a lot. I'm sorry, I'm like so nervous. And anyway, I was very small, but I could drink a lot. I got flunked out of my first choice college in Massachusetts. Flunked out after 2 years. At first, I think I was on marijuana maintenance, and then, because I knew the effect alcohol had on me, and I knew that alcoholism ran in my family. I remember when I was 15 finding out, my mother is an alcoholic, and, I don't know whether, I hope I'm not like breaking her anonymity. I don't know, what one thing I was told with this AA program is, I can work my program regardless of whether or not other people are. You know what I mean? And you always have choices, is what I was told. And that's a big thing for me at work. One of the most powerful things I've learned in AA, it may sound like a strange statement, but it's one of the most important things I've learned is you don't have to be Captain Obvious. And I know that might sound like a strange statement, but I think for me, it's especially with like step 6 and 7 that, you don't have to be Captain Obvious. Yeah, I don't have to be that guy. If I don't like the way my supervisor's doing their job, like what makes me think I'm in charge? I remember, I don't have to be Captain Obvious, and I can, practice these principles in all our affairs. And I remember talking to a friend about that, and I was saying, I said, how many meetings am I supposed to go to? And he said, I don't know what you mean, Sam, because when you're really doing this program, it's like you bring the spirit of the meeting wherever you go. And, you always have choices. And, you always have choices, and it's they said it's a blueprint for living. But anyway, I came into AA when I was so I drank, uh, couldn't seem to drink without getting drunk. You know what I mean? And I right now as I share this, I don't know, it's hard to tell when I share. Am I beating myself up, or am I really just thinking I need to stick it more to my experience? Anyway, I couldn't seem to drink without getting drunk. I became a different person when I drank. It's like that Jekyll and Hyde thing. It talks in the big book about the three types of drinkers. The average or temperate drinker. That's like, I was speaking to my dad a few years ago, and my dad's pushing 70 now. And he told me that he hasn't been drunk since college. And as an alcoholic, my first reaction to that was, well, he must be white knuckling it. He must be fighting the craving. But maybe he's just not an alcoholic. Maybe he doesn't have the phenomenon of craving that appears to exist in our class of drinkers only. You know what I mean? We talk about the real alcoholic, and we can't seem to, when I want to stop, I can't, and when I stop, I can't stay stopped. And I remember I tell the story a lot. And I tell the story a lot that when I was in high school, my grandparents lived around the corner. My grandfather died when I was pretty young, but my grandmother was still around. And I was a clever alcoholic because I figured out the combination to her alarm code so I could sneak into her house, steal some liquor from her beautifully well-stocked liquor cabinet, and go back to my house. Believe it or not, some people would refer to that as breaking and entering with a side of robbery. And also, maybe you're not, well, at least breaking and entering with a side of robbery. You know what I mean? And I tell that story a lot because, I guess perhaps I didn't realize it at that time. And, so alcohol, like I remember when I was 14, when I was just a freshman in high school, and I had the student government gave out those like planners. How am I doing with time? Good. Okay. Let me know if I'm like, when I'm 5 minutes or okay. The student government association, whatever they're called, gave out the planners, and you'd like write little notes or doodles in your planner. And while other boys may have written down about cars, I wrote down Smirnoff and all the names of all this different alcohol. And I was really into bands like the Grateful Dead and Fish. And I think it was a lot of it had to do with the altered states of consciousness that was associated with I love the culture of drugs and alcohol. I found out that I was like 0.00005% Scottish, and I got into that whole thing. I hope I didn't offend any Scottish people. I remember when I stole that bottle of liquor, and when I stole that bottle of liquor from my grandparents' house, and I was drinking alone upstairs in my room, I took a swig of that scotch, the Dewar's, and I had that whole fantasy about like I'd seen Braveheart, and I found out that I was like whatever. But I really relate to the isms, and I know that I live a different life than I did when I was drinking. You know what I mean? And I and I owe that to the 12 steps. And step one, we admit we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. I was told that there's a dash in that first step, and in that dash, I can put in whatever I'm powerless over. Not that I do that good of a job at it, but I'm powerless over alcohol. Once I start, I can't stop, and I become a different person. I look at who I was in college, failed out of the first college because I came from a well-to-do family, got into another college, barely graduated from. And would I have done that stuff if I was sober? I don't think so. And, I look at that, I got into that whole, the self-centeredness, selfishness, self-centeredness. I was told that when I make a big deal out of anything that is not God and not these 12 steps, then what I'm really making a big deal out of is me. You know what I mean? So I identify with that one a lot. And they say like our problems are of our own making. And step one, uh, powerless over alcohol. A friend of mine used to say, we're all powerless over alcohol, but my unmanageability may be different than your unmanageability. You know what I mean? But hey, maybe there's also an inner level of unmanageability that unites us all. You know what I mean? And step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I'm still not particularly sane, I don't think. But like I was told, if it isn't practical, then it probably isn't spiritual. And I know that I am not God. I know that I don't run the show. I am not the higher power. I don't make the grass grow. I didn't even build the building I'm sitting in right now. And so to me, the spirituality for me, as I heard someone say, this is literally something I saw in a Facebook sober group that I really like. I need a God I can do business with. I like that one a lot because, it's one thing to like look at a painting or to see someone else's conception of God, but that's not going to do anything about my character defects. You know what I mean? And so I do say the third step prayer a lot. Just try to turn it over. Steps 4 and 5, I don't do any of this stuff perfectly, but with step 4, I was told that, I really identify with some of there's certain lines in the big book that just hit me when it says, when I was drinking and stuff, and maybe when I was sober before I got into the steps, was I not a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? I really identify with that one. When I was maybe pouring people drinks or asking people how they were doing, but was I really self-seeking? I really identify with that one. And sobriety, spirituality gives me an opportunity to get out of that. I was also told, so like it says in the big book, whatever our cause, I think it says, we're not, most of us, concerned with our resentments, our self-pity. Boy, do I relate to that one. And for me, I found when I did the steps with my sponsor told me that when it comes to like steps 4 and like when it comes to resentments, we talk about the magic column of step 4, which is what's my part in the resentment. And I used to think that my part in the resentment was if someone said something nasty to me, what did I do that caused them to say that? That could play a role in it. You know what I mean? But my sponsor also told me the real magic is, why am I holding on to this stuff? Why do I care? When I was working in food service and retail, and why am I taking it so personally when a customer is nasty to me? Maybe it's because my parents put me through college. Do these guys know who they're talking to? Dude, you're a deli clerk. They're talking to you like you're a deli clerk. You know what I mean? No, do they know who they're talking to? What am I doing working at this deli? Anyway, steps 5, I don't do any of these steps perfectly, and I'm not an expert or an authority, but steps 5 and 6, I look at the things I've gotten to say to my sponsor, and it's an ongoing process, and made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. They told me the steps are in order for reason, and like one leads to the other, and it's not something you analyze, it's something you do. And with steps 5 and that stuff, and I remember the thing that I was so scared about. I texted my sponsor and about it, and for me it was this, like they say, this whole AA program is is just a change in perspective, and that's what keeps happening. And I was told that if I keep doing this AA program, there's no limit as to how much better I can get. You know what I mean? And like with step 5, like this thing that I was so scared about, I was ready because I think I had enough. I had reached that gift of desperation, and I remember texting my sponsor about it. And instead of like calling the cops, he just is like, dude, I'm at work, man. You're really gonna like give me this whole thing while I'm at work? And he wasn't saying that to be like rude or dismissive, but I'll never forget that. And like other stuff too, that when I, when I told my sponsor about something I had done, he basically something very hurtful to my mother, and and he's just like, why'd you do that? Were you trying? And I thought he meant like he was trying to chastise me, like, why'd you do that, Sam? What's wrong? And he said, were you trying to control your mother? You know, and you know, and uh, and step six, character defects, like, so, this is an ongoing process for me, but I think my problem at work is a character defect. I want to be the boss, like it says in the big book, I want to be the director. If my coworkers would only do more work, but who am I to make that call? Like I remember when I was starting out at my food service job and I was like yelling at my coworkers and blah, blah, blah. And it seemed natural for me to do that. And I told my coworker, and I would get like written up and I would get yelled and I would get in trouble. And I told an old timer at a meeting about that. And the old timer just smiled at me and he's like, Sam, I understand your frustrations, but like, who are you to be yelling at them? And that same person would tell me, he tries to say, if that's what works for that person, who the heck am I? If there but for the grace of God go I, who the heck am I to, if that's how my coworker, and this is not like original thoughts. These are, things I try to implement in my own life, but it's also things I've heard people talk about how they deal with these situations. Like, if that's how my coworker wants, if that's what works for my supervisor, to me, it might seem really stupid or lazy, but like, again, I don't have to be Captain Obvious. That same friend told me about, calls it screen doors on submarines. Sometimes I see someone doing something that's like, dude, that is so dumb, that person might as well be putting a screen door on a submarine. But it's not my place. I think that might be a character defect for me. And I think a lot of it involves my own bigotry and my own prejudices, And so, for example, like at work, a coworker of mine plays music at her desk. And to the great Sam, like I might be like, okay, that's so unprofessional. What is she doing here? Like, what is this the place for that? But it's like, dude, worker among workers, and worker among workers, I think means not doing that, because if I'm telling my coworkers how to do their job, that's not worker among workers. It's like, dude, stay in my own lane. If that's what works for that person, I don't have the right to. And like my friend used to say, like, if just because I think what someone's doing is stupid doesn't necessarily mean anything. And then like, steps 8 and steps 9, and it's still an ongoing process for me. And we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I think I've experienced some of that in my life, through living it through spirituality. I think I've experienced some of that in my life, and we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, and changing through doing this program. And then made direct amends to such people, made a list of all the persons we had harmed. And they say that it's said that what often happens when we do these steps is in step 4, when we have these people I resented so much, and those are the people I owe an amends to. You know what I mean? I think, I think that applies to some coworkers at work. I think that applies to, I look at my own experience when I was first coming into AA, the people I was ranting about and fuming about, those are the people that were like looking out for me. Those are the people that were there for me. And again, it's a change in perspective. You know what I mean? It's a new way of seeing things. I believe that's what this program is. You know what I mean? And 10, 11, and 12 made direct amends to such people wherever we had harmed, except when to do so would injure them or others. Yeah, I try to live in steps 10, 11, and 12. I don't know how good of a job I do at it. They call it the maintenance steps. Just kind of doing the next right thing. And one thing I've heard that I think makes a lot of sense to me is when people talk about doing the opposite action. You know what I mean? If I really want to yell at someone, doing the opposite action. You know what I mean? And it's sometimes difficult for me to tell whether I actually goofed up on something or whether I'm just beating myself up. I don't know if anyone else has that issue, but like, I also do believe that I was told that reality is the higher power. and that truth is sanity. You know what I mean? So like all this stuff, I think I do have some awareness of it. You know what I mean? Like they say, awareness, acceptance, action. And you know, I mean, I know that you know, like the person I consider my step sponsor, the person I call my step sponsor, awareness, perspective is everything. And you know, I can always, you know, all in how you react to it, and you know, I always have choices, and you know, to see things differently. Even the people that make me mad, I could change my perspective, and it might not bother me anymore. You know, if I change my you know, I often tell this story about when I was working in a deli, and we had a customer who was real hard to deal with, and very, shall we say, particular. And my boss, my supervisor, was the one who dealt with him. And as soon as the guy was out of earshot, my supervisor says to me, "That guy's a such and such." But then my supervisor said something I'll never forget. My supervisor goes, "But that's what we're here for." And so part of that goes into, you know, not taking, don't take that personally, don't take things personally, you know. And I remember the same thing when I was working in retail, and I was complaining to a friend about a customer, and my friend goes, "Sam, I hate to break it to you, but no matter how nasty that customer is, it's literally in your job description to provide, you know, a mature customer service." And when I told that story about that's what we're here for to a friend of mine, he said, "Sam, on a spiritual level, do you think you could apply that to a spiritual level? You know, practice these principles in in all our affairs. You know, that's what we're here for." You know, and step 12, you know, I know the incredible experience of going, you know, I've never heard a fourth step, I don't think. I try to live in the 12th step. I try to be of service, you know, and I know what it does. It's, you know, really is an incredible experience. And, you know, just going through the big book with someone, you know, I've never even taken someone all through the big book. Um, I don't know if I've technically been through the entire cover to cover with someone either, but you know, I know and what an incredible experience it is. You know, just going through like the preface and the forewords and such, and you know, so you know, and you know, it's I you know, to be of service, and you know, I'm kind of, I feel a little weird now because you know, I don't always feel like I'm, you know, when I'm in a bad headspace, you know, I don't know if I really am being of service, but you know, these young people organizations, this YPOG gives a good opportunity to be of service, you know, and the whole idea of this program is to get out of self-centeredness. An old grand sponsor of mine used to say, you know, the whole program is about the destruction of self-centeredness, you know, and I may not, you know, whether I know, you know, to me it's a God of my experience, and to know that I'm not it, you know what I mean. And that same guy, he was kind of an agnostic, and he was an agnostic, but he would talk about a purpose greater than self, you know, having a purpose greater than self. And you know, they say victims don't stay sober, you know, and I'm not a victim, I'm a volunteer, you know. And he would talk about, he would say, now that this grand sponsor said, now that he's sober, he said, "I lost my victim card, I lost my entitlement card, and I lost my crystal ball to gaze into the future and know what's going to happen." So if anyone's new here, keep coming back. Please keep coming, get into those steps, you know, and I recommend getting into service as well. And keep coming back. God bless you all. Thank you. Stay safe.